Hope you enjoyed episode 3. Let me take you back in time to the year 2600 before Christ and relive the moments when the ever-ruling Pharaoh almost became immortal. Shadows of the Sand. It was the time of Sneferu, the great pharaoh of Egypt, during the construction of the awe-inspiring pyramids that towered over the desert landscape. As the scorching sun beat down upon the backs of the laboring workers, rumors spread through the city about the purpose behind these colossal structures. Whispers filled the air, carrying tales of a unique pattern that, when completed, would grant the pharaoh eternal life by channeling the powers of the dead. In the outskirts of the city, a pit became the final resting place for the unfortunate souls who lost their lives during the construction. With every death, the pit grew deeper, an ominous reminder of the high price paid for immortality. The workers toiled with fear in their hearts, knowing that their labor might eventually be their undoing. The pharaoh's courtiers prepared for the day of the ritual, a night when the moon would be full and eclipsed, casting an eerie glow over the pyramids. According to the ancient texts, the light of the moon was to be harnessed and channeled through a sacred glass, pinpointing the exact location where the army of the dead would rise to serve the pharaoh. As the appointed night approached, a sense of foreboding settled over the city. The once bustling streets emptied as the people locked themselves away, fearing the unknown. The moon, pregnant with dark shadows, began its celestial dance in the night sky. On the fateful night, the pharaoh, cloaked in the finest robes adorned with gold and jewels, made his way to the designated point between the pyramids. The courtiers and priests, their faces as pale as the moon itself, gathered around him, chanting ancient incantations to beckon the spirits. But something sinister was lurking in the shadows. An evil demon, envious of the pharaoh's desire for eternal life, had infiltrated the sacred circle. As the moon's light passed through the glass, the demon cleverly redirected its course, sabotaging the ritual and altering its intended destination. A hushed silence fell over the crowd as the pharaoh's hopes were shattered. The glass exploded into a million fragments, and the moon's light scattered into an ominous haze. Panic engulfed the courtiers as the ground trembled beneath them. From the pit, a haunting wail arose, and the dead began to stir. But instead of rising to serve the pharaoh, they emerged with malice in their eyes, drawn not to the pharaoh but to the wicked demon that had deceived them. Chaos ensued as the vengeful spirits surrounded the demon, tearing at its shadowy form. The demon screamed in agony, its dark essence dissipating into the night air. But before it vanished completely, it turned its sinister gaze upon the pharaoh, vowing to take his soul as a final act of defiance. The pharaoh's heart raced as he realized the magnitude of the disaster. He tried to flee, but the spirits were relentless, driven by their thirst for vengeance. The desert wind howled like a tortured soul as the pharaoh's fate was sealed. As the moon reached the peak of the eclipse, the spirits descended upon the pharaoh, tearing into his flesh, and consuming his very essence. The once mighty ruler fell to his knees, his life force draining away. His eyes, once filled with ambition and pride, now held only terror and regret. The eclipse passed, and the moon emerged from the shadow's grasp. The pit fell silent once more, and the spirits vanished into the night, their mission of vengeance complete. All that remained of the once great pharaoh was an empty vessel, devoid of life and ambition. The Black Pharaoh. My name is Merit, and I serve in the royal court of Pharaoh Sneferu during his reign in ancient Egypt. Little did I know that my loyalty to the pharaoh would plunge me into a terrifying journey beyond the realm of the living. As whispers of the pharaoh's obsession with eternal life reached my ears, I couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and intrigue. Sneferu's eyes gleamed with an unnerving hunger for immortality, and he sought answers from forbidden texts and ancient scrolls. One day, as I was organizing scrolls in the dimly lit library, I stumbled upon a hidden chamber concealed behind a heavy tapestry. Within, I found a collection of arcane tomes filled with dark incantations and forbidden knowledge. My heart raced with trepidation as I read about the demons and malevolent entities that could be summoned to grant the pharaoh's desire. The ancient text spoke of a powerful demon known as Amdusias, the Lord of Shadows, said to possess the knowledge of eternal life. Sneferu, convinced that this demon held the key to his desires, devised a plan to summon it and make a pact for immortality. On a moonless night, hidden from prying eyes, Sneferu conducted the ritual in a secluded chamber deep within the Great Pyramid. I, along with a select few courtiers, were present to bear witness to the pharaoh's audacious bid for eternity. Incense filled the air as the pharaoh chanted in an ancient language, drawing symbols on the floor with a mix of blood and crushed herbs. The room seemed to darken despite the torches that flickered along the walls. The atmosphere became heavy with an otherworldly presence. As the ritual reached its crescendo, a gust of wind swept through the chamber, extinguishing the torches and plunging us into darkness. A spine-chilling silence settled over us as we waited with bated breath. Suddenly, a deep voice resonated through the darkness, causing the hairs on my neck to stand on end. "You seek eternal life, Pharaoh. What would you offer in exchange?" it boomed. Sneferu stepped forward, unwavering in his determination. "I offer you 100 souls, powerful Amdusias, and my unwavering loyalty," he proclaimed. The shadows seemed to dance and coalesce, forming a monstrous figure before us. A pair of blood-red eyes pierced through the darkness, gazing at the pharaoh with an inscrutable expression. "Very well, Sneferu. Your offer is accepted. Sign the pact with your blood," the demon commanded. Without hesitation, Sneferu drew a small dagger from his robes and sliced his palm, letting his blood drip onto the floor. A fiery sigil materialized beneath his feet, sealing the dark pact. From that moment on, the pharaoh's fate was irrevocably intertwined with the malevolent forces he had beckoned. As days turned into weeks, Sneferu's obsession with immortality intensified. His once benevolent rule twisted into tyranny, and he demanded more sacrifices to appease the insatiable hunger of Amdusias. Innocent lives were claimed, and fear gripped the hearts of the people. I could no longer ignore the darkness that had consumed my once great pharaoh. I decided to seek the counsel of a wise hermit, rumored to possess knowledge of ancient rituals to counteract malevolent forces. The hermit, Zafar, lived in seclusion deep within the desert, guarding secrets that could rival those of the pharaoh's forbidden library. After a treacherous journey, I arrived at Zafar's humble abode, explaining the horrors that had befallen the kingdom under Sneferu's rule. Zafar listened intently, his eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and understanding. "The path Sneferu has chosen leads only to destruction. To combat Amdusias, we must uncover the demon's true name," Zafar said, his voice tinged with weariness. Together, we delved into ancient scrolls and lost texts, searching for the elusive name that would grant us power over Amdusias. Hours turned into days, but we finally found a fragment of an ancient tablet that held the key. The name was revealed to be Zultharas, a name so powerful and secret that even demons feared its utterance. Armed with this knowledge, we devised a daring plan to confront Amdusias and sever the pharaoh's ties to darkness. Under the cover of night, we returned to the Great Pyramid, where Amdusia's malevolence had taken root. The air was thick with the stench of death and despair. Sneferu's once proud visage now bore the scars of his unholy alliance. With the knowledge of Zultharas at my lips, I confronted Amdusias, channeling the ancient power to weaken the demon's grip on Sneferu's soul. The air crackled with arcane energy as the pharaoh's eyes widened in realization. "No! You dare betray me?" Sneferu screamed, his voice laced with anger and fear. "It is not betrayal, my pharaoh, but an attempt to save you from this darkness that consumes you," I replied, my heart heavy with sorrow. Amdusias roared in fury, a tempest of shadows swirling around him. But the power of Zultharas held firm, and I felt a glimmer of hope as the demon's influence waned. The battle of wills raged on, the forces of light and darkness clashing in a battle for the pharaoh's soul. Zafar joined the fray, his knowledge of ancient magic bolstering our resistance. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, bathing the pyramid in golden light, the malevolent grip of Amdusias finally weakened, and the demon dissipated into the shadows. Sneferu collapsed to the floor, his body weakened from the ordeal. It was a moment of both triumph and loss. The pharaoh's immortality had been shattered, and he would once again walk among the mortal realm. Yet, the darkness had left its mark on his soul, and his heart was burdened with the weight of the atrocities committed. In the aftermath of the battle, Sneferu's rule changed drastically. Echoes of the Shadows. My name is Nefertari, and I was once a humble scribe in the court of Pharaoh Sneferu. In the year 2600 BCE, the kingdom of Egypt prospered under his reign, but there were dark and sinister secrets lurking beneath the grand facade of prosperity. I first became aware of the horrors that plagued our land when I stumbled upon an ancient scroll hidden away in the depths of the palace library. The parchment spoke of an accursed artifact known as the Idol of Thoth, said to hold unimaginable power but at a grave cost. The idol was rumored to grant the bearer unmatched knowledge and dominion over life and death. With this newfound understanding, the bearer could manipulate the very fabric of reality. However, it came with a sinister price, the corruption of one's soul and an insatiable thirst for darkness. The scroll warned of the idol's malevolent influence, recounting the stories of those who had dared to wield its power and the terrible fates that befell them. The words sent shivers down my spine, and I could not shake the feeling that something sinister lurked in the shadows of our kingdom. Determined to protect my people and the Pharaoh, I embarked on a quest to locate the Idol of Thoth and ensure that it never fell into the wrong hands. My journey took me deep into the heart of ancient Egypt, where whispers of darkness echoed through the vast desert sands. As I delved deeper into my investigation, I found traces of unspeakable rituals and forbidden sacrifices. It appeared that a clandestine cult had taken root, worshipping the ancient gods in twisted and perverse ways, seeking power from the very depths of the netherworld. One fateful night, as I ventured into the ruins of an ancient temple dedicated to Osiris, the god of the afterlife, I stumbled upon a gathering of cloaked figures engaged in a horrifying ritual. They chanted in a haunting tongue, and the air was thick with the stench of blood and incense. In the center of the ritualistic circle stood a grotesque idol, adorned with jewels and malevolence. Its eyes seemed to pierce my very soul, and a sensation of impending doom washed over me. Fear clenched my heart, but I knew that the only way to end this darkness was to confront it head-on. My instincts led me to believe that the sinister cult was seeking the Idol of Thoth, hoping to harness its power for their wicked purposes. I returned to the palace, my mind racing with revelations of the cult's presence within our very walls. I had to protect the Pharaoh and my people from the malevolent forces that threatened to consume our kingdom. To my horror, I discovered that some of the Pharaoh's most trusted advisors were members of the cult. The tendrils of darkness had reached even the highest echelons of power, and I knew that I had to act swiftly. With a heavy heart, I confided in a loyal friend, Amos, who had always been a pillar of support during my darkest days. Together, we devised a plan to expose the cult and protect the Pharaoh from their nefarious intentions. In the heart of the night, we sneaked into the temple where the cult held their unholy gatherings. Armed with our knowledge of the idol's malevolence, we hoped to break the enchantments that bound its power to this world. The temple's catacombs were a labyrinth of shadows, and we navigated them with bated breath. As we drew closer to the inner sanctum, the air grew colder, and the very walls seemed to pulse with malevolence. Finally, we reached the chamber where the Idol of Thoth stood, emanating an aura of darkness that seemed to consume all light. Amos and I chanted ancient incantations, trying to weaken the grip the idol held on our world. But as the ritual progressed, a sense of dread settled over us. We could feel the cultists' malevolent presence closing in, their sinister laughter echoing through the dark halls. The ground trembled beneath our feet, and an unholy force surged through the chamber. The idol's eyes blazed with an eerie light, and it seemed to mock our feeble attempts to stop it. "We are too late," Amos whispered, his voice filled with despair. But I refused to give up. I couldn't let the darkness win. Summoning all my courage, I chanted louder, pouring every ounce of my being into the incantation. In that moment, the idol seemed to waver, its malevolent power weakening. The cultists' laughter turned into agonizing screams, and their forms flickered like shadows. "Curse you," one of them screamed, lunging at me with a dagger. In a desperate act of self-defense, I used the last of my strength to knock the dagger away, sending the cultist sprawling to the ground. The others faltered, their resolve wavering as the enchantment broke. Suddenly, the Idol of Thoth began to crumble before our eyes, its malevolence consumed by the light of truth and righteousness. With a final burst of energy, Amos and I banished the remnants of darkness from the temple. As dawn broke over the horizon, we emerged from the temple, victorious but forever changed by the horrors we had witnessed. The cult had been disbanded, its malevolence scattered to the winds. In the aftermath of the ordeal, the Pharaoh was made aware of the sinister plot that had threatened our kingdom. Sneferu, though shaken by the revelation, was grateful for our bravery and loyalty. My name is Dr. Amelia Hartley, an archaeologist with an insatiable thirst for uncovering the mysteries of the past. For years, I had been fascinated by the tales of the Necklace of the Evil Eye, an ancient artifact rumored to possess the power to curse anyone who dared to possess it. In the year 1922, with excitement coursing through my veins, I set foot on the soil of Egypt, determined to find the elusive necklace and unlock its secrets. Little did I know that my quest would lead me down a path of darkness and terror. Guided by local lore and ancient texts, my team and I began our dig in a remote desert region, far from the bustling cities and tourist attractions. The scorching sun beat down upon us as we toiled under the unforgiving heat, driven by the promise of untold knowledge. As the days turned into weeks, our efforts bore fruit. Beneath the sand, we unearthed an ancient tomb, untouched by the passage of time. The anticipation in the air was palpable as we stepped into the chamber, our hearts racing with excitement and trepidation. The walls of the tomb were adorned with intricate hieroglyphics, depicting tales of ancient gods and curses. At the heart of the chamber lay an ornate sarcophagus, and beside it, a pedestal holding an opulent jewelry box. With trembling hands, I opened the box, and there, nestled among jewels and relics of the past, lay the fabled necklace of the evil eye. It was a mesmerizing sight, but an unsettling feeling washed over me as I gazed upon its malevolent charm. As night fell, we made camp near the tomb, eager to study the artifact in detail. I could not resist trying on the necklace, feeling its weight on my neck like a shroud of darkness. But even as I admired its craftsmanship, a sense of foreboding began to gnaw at my mind. That night, strange things began to happen. The desert wind howled like a mournful spirit, and the moon was veiled by a blanket of thick clouds. In the eerie silence, I heard whispers echoing through the camp, as if the very sand held secrets that it refused to divulge. Sleep eluded me, and when I finally closed my eyes, I was plagued by haunting visions. A malevolent gaze, emanating from the heart of the necklace, followed me through my dreams, its intensity searing into my soul. The days that followed were fraught with unexplainable events. Our once steadfast team became plagued with illness and misfortune. Ancient curses seemed to manifest before our very eyes, and the sense of dread that hung in the air was suffocating. I became fixated on the necklace, its beauty now overshadowed by the knowledge of its curse. Yet, I could not bring myself to part with it. The power it held over me was too strong, as if its malevolence had taken root in my very being. One night, as I lay awake in my tent, the necklace seemed to shimmer with an unnatural glow. It whispered promises of eternal knowledge and power, but its intentions felt sinister, as if it craved a sacrifice of my very soul. Determined to break free from its grasp, I made the decision to bury the necklace deep within the tomb, hoping to sever its connection to our world. But as I descended into the chamber, I could feel an unseen force taunting me, mocking my feeble attempts at escape. With trembling hands, I placed the cursed necklace back inside the jewelry box and sealed it within the sarcophagus. The air in the tomb grew heavy, and an unsettling silence enveloped me. I knew that this act alone would not be enough to banish the darkness that had taken hold of our expedition. As I turned to leave, a low, guttural growl echoed through the chamber. The walls seemed to close in around me, and I realized that the curse had awakened ancient spirits, guardians of the tomb who sought to protect the necklace at all costs. Panic surged through me as I sprinted towards the exit, but the spirits were relentless in their pursuit. Their malevolent forms manifested in the shadows, inching ever closer, hungry for vengeance. In a desperate attempt to escape, I tripped over a loose stone and fell to the ground. The spirits closed in, their malevolent gazes fixing upon me, freezing me in terror. I could feel their spectral hands reaching out, their touch as cold as death itself. As the darkness closed in around me, I summoned the last of my strength and reached for a nearby torch. With a trembling hand, I lit it and held it aloft, warding off the encroaching spirits. The chamber erupted with a blinding light, and the spirits let out anguished wails as they were forced back into the shadows. But in that moment, I caught a glimpse of the necklace, its malevolent eye seemingly laughing at my futile efforts to escape its curse. Fueled by fear and desperation, I made a mad dash towards the exit, the light of the torch guiding me through the labyrinthine tomb. The spirits pursued relentlessly, their sinister laughter echoing through the chambers. As I emerged from the tomb, gasping for breath, I knew that the curse of the necklace of the evil eye would forever haunt me. The artifact had unleashed an ancient evil that could not be contained, and its malevolence would forever linger in the annals of history. Whispers of the Forbidden. In the year 2600 BCE, the kingdom of Egypt was ruled by the powerful and ambitious Pharaoh Sneferu. Under his reign, the land prospered, and monuments rose to touch the heavens. However, amid the grandeur of his rule, there were whispers of an ancient darkness that cast a chilling shadow upon his kingdom. Sneferu's obsession with immortality knew no bounds. Tales of a forbidden book hidden deep within the labyrinthine library of Memphis fueled his desire to uncover the secrets of eternal life. The tome, known as the Necronomicon, was said to hold knowledge of ancient rituals that could grant unimaginable power and cheat death itself. Driven by the insatiable hunger for immortality, the pharaoh commissioned a secretive coven of sorcerers to retrieve the forbidden book. They ventured into the darkest recesses of the desert, braving malevolent spirits and ancient curses to claim the Necronomicon. Upon their return, Sneferu locked himself away in a hidden chamber deep within the Great Pyramid, eager to delve into the secrets of the tome. His courtiers and advisors warned him of the dangers that lay within those ancient pages, but the pharaoh's heart was consumed by a thirst for power. As days turned into weeks, the atmosphere in the kingdom grew tense. Whispers of strange occurrences and unsettling shadows haunting the palace corridors spread like wildfire among the people. Fear gripped the hearts of the citizens, sensing that something malevolent had been unleashed. Unbeknownst to the pharaoh, the dark rituals within the Necronomicon had awakened an ancient evil that lurked in the shadows, an entity that hungered for souls and reveled in chaos. It was a malevolent force known as the Shadow of Eternity, a specter of darkness that could consume an entire empire. As the pharaoh continued his descent into the forbidden knowledge, the Shadow of Eternity began to seep into the world, its tendrils of darkness creeping through the palace walls and the streets of the city. It fed on fear, growing stronger with each soul it devoured. With terror spreading like a plague, the kingdom found itself in the grip of a sinister nightmare. People vanished without a trace, swallowed by the abyss of darkness that emanated from the Great Pyramid. The once prosperous land descended into a realm of horror, its citizens living in constant dread. Desperate to save the kingdom from the malevolence he had unleashed, Sneferu sought the counsel of a reclusive sage known as Raoul. The sage had long foreseen the dangers of meddling with forbidden knowledge and had once tried to destroy the Necronomicon to protect the world from its evil. Raoul warned the pharaoh of the dire consequences of his actions, explaining that the Shadow of Eternity was an ancient demon tasked with maintaining the delicate balance between life and death. By tampering with the rituals, Sneferu had disrupted that balance, and the demon sought to devour everything in its path. Realizing the gravity of his mistakes, Sneferu pleaded with Raoul to help him undo the dark magic he had unleashed. Together, they ventured into the heart of the Great Pyramid, seeking a way to seal the malevolent force back into the confines of the Necronomicon. As they descended deeper into the labyrinth, the air grew heavy with the presence of the malevolent entity. The walls seemed to pulsate with a malevolent energy, and the shadows danced in eerie patterns, whispering promises of eternal suffering. Finally, they reached the hidden chamber where the pharaoh had summoned the demon. The sight before them was harrowing. The room was filled with an otherworldly darkness, and the walls bore grotesque etchings depicting the demon's insatiable hunger. Raoul chanted ancient incantations, drawing upon the power of the old gods to weaken the Shadow of Eternity. Sneferu, his heart heavy with remorse, added his voice to the incantations, hoping to amend his sins. With every verse spoken, the malevolent force weakened, but the struggle was far from over. The demon fought back with all its fury, sending tendrils of darkness to ensnare Raoul and the Pharaoh. The chamber trembled with the force of the struggle, threatening to collapse around them. But Raoul's knowledge of ancient magic proved to be their salvation. With a final surge of power, he managed to trap the shadow of eternity within the pages of the Necronomicon once more. The malevolent force was sealed away, and the darkness that had plagued the kingdom receded. In the aftermath of the ordeal, Sneferu vowed to undo the damage he had caused and renounced his thirst for immortality. With Raoul's guidance, he dedicated the remainder of his reign to restoring balance and harmony to his once great kingdom. The memory of those haunting days would forever linger, a reminder of the dangers of seeking forbidden knowledge and tampering with powers beyond mortal comprehension. The Pharaoh's rule was forever marred by the horrors he had unleashed, a cautionary tale etched into the annals of history, warning future generations of the consequences of meddling with the ancient and the arcane.